So there's always a way to get to and from the aircraft from the side, at least here. So this is something which I've had a lot of good reports come back about the advantages of having these routes. Of course, it has done restrictions in other locations. So just looking at a scenario here, ground service equipment as provided by the aircraft manufacturer. When you work with our product Aviplan, we have for all aircraft where we have information, we provide a service arrangement which is analog the service arrangement that you find in the ACAP, the information which the manufacturers give us, and it's also, remember, it's just an example. It's something that can be done. It's not a must. This is up to us in the planning stage to get the information about what's going to be happening on the ground, what vehicles will be provided. And here, this is the A320neo series. There are two different, well, actually, they offer three different scenarios in the ACAP. We're just looking at two here. There's one with passenger boarding bridge involved. Here, I've done an open layout where we've got passenger stairs, so it's going to be walk or bus boarding. You'll see they've done the opposite to me here. They've set water to the left of the aircraft, lavatory to the rear. You'll also see that they have down the right-hand side. Not only is here dispenser fueling being shown here in this display, might not be the case at that airport, at the airport where you're working, but there are container and conveyor belt loading being done at the same time. And so you'll see two different types of tow trucks or trains coming in. There's here it's marked as bulk, so, and this is going to be loaded over the conveyor belt. And then I've got container stuff, which is coming in on the LD3 dollies front and back to the high loader or container loader, container loading device, which is going to be used at the front and the rear of this position. Alternatively, you'll see here is an alternative, same layout, but here there is just conveyor belt loading, and we're just looking at baggage trains here, that front and back. So this is a different scenario. So they can be loaded with loose cargo, they can be loaded with containers. What is the operator going to be using? We need to know this information because it will have different time and space constraints. To be able to battle these sorts of scenarios, it's not enough to just work with the information given in the ACAPs from the aircraft manufacturers, which was why we built inside Aviplan the service arrangement editor. And to Aviplan and take a quick look at how we can do that and how you can model any number of scenarios for your ground service equipment using Aviplan. And when I open this tool, it's basically like a small CAD environment, if you will. I've got a list of last used objects on the left-hand side here, but I can also grab anything out of our extensive library from Aviplan. But let's stay with the known object at the moment. I'll select 737-800 winglet from my list, and you'll see we've built up this based exactly on what we saw previously in one of the slides on the 737-800 as the standard or a possible service arrangement. As a rule, we have both in as standard here. You get to decide, you don't, instead of having to search and look for it, we have a compatible conventional or tow barless truck at the front. If you choose one or the other, I'll remove the tow barless object there. When I'm looking at this picture, I also see that here, as I showed you before, here are lavatory and water in the same location. I'll just click on this one here and it tells me that's the water. So I'm going to move it. By right clicking, I can just move my water vehicle to the back, and I can rotate it and place it down here and say, okay, this is where I'm going to be using my service arrangement here. I'm going to move this one as well a little bit further away from the wing, a little bit closer to the stairs. Again, these will be arriving and departing sequence. They're not going to be there at the same time. Loading this particular vehicle, you'll see here my loading doors shown down here on the left-hand side, and I see baggage trains, each only showing one baggage cart on it. Usually unlikely if the aircraft's traveling with a full load. So we'll move this one first out of the way, because what I'm going to do, and I'll move this one out of the way, is we will add from the library a belt loader. I'll select just a small belt loader. We'll save time and not dig into the library from here. There are a number of different belt loaders manufactured and generic models in the Aviplan library. But I'll place this in a location and say, okay, this is my belt loader in its location for loading the rear. I'll add another belt loader to the front. I could have selected perhaps a longer one for the front to help avoid the catering situation there. I can still change this at any time as well, because I'm creating this as a template. I can continue and make variants of this service arrangement at any time, which I can apply to any aircraft in one of my planning scenarios. Also now here, I'll take a look at the carts here, and before I change anything there, I will add another cart to both of those, and I will also change. So I see they're quite wide. Those probably more likely a cargo dolly as opposed to a cart, which would be a little narrower. See, the narrowest I've got on my list is this one here. I'll select that and place those there instead. So these are more typically baggage carts, and I'll relocate that there. I'll leave that one there for now. And also at the back here, I will just, for time's sake, just add another 2 to this one. I can rotate those either manually, or I can enter here angles depending on how I wish to work, or what I'm trying to achieve here. Again, or I can again just drag those in a collective way, move them across and place them here somewhere like this. One last move to rotate. That means 2 last moves. Depending on the type of again, the type of aircraft here, you'll see that these are probably, to get in this position, they would have had to come in underneath the wing. Might be possible, might not. There are certain circumstances you also have to remember, depending on the type of aircraft. Smaller aircraft, for example, something like a Fokker 100 or a 717, things with lower wing aircraft, you can't travel under the wing even with your baggage. So in these situations, when you're planning this scenario here, you have to allow that the vehicle, the baggage will be towed in to a distance close to the belt, and then they'll be discoupled or left behind. The tractor will head off, and the actual baggage containers have to be pulled by hand into the location. These are sorts of scenarios which are difficult for us to simulate with the software, but it's still important that you get this information before you go out and do this type of planning work. I'll just save that one. I've just saved myself a new template for that. I can use that template over and over again. I can also share it with other colleagues to do this type of work. As we say, basically every stand is an individual. Now, you'll see in this screen now on my Aviplan screen, there's a mess of equipment there. What I've actually done before the show, of course, was I went to the ACAP again for the Boeing 737-800 as an example. And I took a look at one of these turnaround time schedules as provided by the manufacturer to give the operator some feeling for how much time is going to be required. And here, of course, they're just talking about the time, but we need to be able, as the planner, we also have to be able to check the sequencing of this time. Is the room there? Is the geometry suitable at the stand to follow this time schedule? Can I adjust the time schedule to make things easier and more functional at the stand? So what I did here is, and you'll see that this is all based on this information shown down the bottom of the screen here, the assumptions which Boeing have taken when they've put this chart together. And as I also make quite clear disclaimer that this data is only to illustrate the general scope of the tasks involved, and it will in every location end up being something completely different. So what I did was I modeled this in Aviplan following that schedule, and basically it's 99% the same as that schedule which you saw, which runs for about 35 minutes in itself. This is running now, the Aviplan presentation which I've put together is running at 20 times real time at the moment. There's still room to manipulate these schedules. You could still optimize here. You know, there's certain assumptions I've made. I've just stayed as close as possible to the times given by Boeing. I have changed some of the sequencing slightly to prevent colliding on the ground. What I didn't do here was I didn't go to a lot of effort of predefining pre-positioning areas for the equipment. I don't know where the equipment are coming from. How far has the container, the catering have to travel to get to this stand? You might have noticed that the caterer service both front and the back here at this stand. This is quite often the case. Depending on the service which the airline is offering, many low carriers don't offer a lot in the way of catering. They only sell cold packaged stuff on the aircraft. Others do a whole different service. It can be one, because of the distance between the stand and the catering facility, that it's a long way. They're going to send a larger truck so that they can service more vehicles while they're out doing that. Make sure that you know what size the catering truck is, because this can block other loading processes if they're there at the same time. When you've done this type of video as well, you can actually slide it around. You'll see this on your screen now, that the videos do bring a lot more than just a nice something to play back. You can watch processes a little closer. This is, of course, now online, not all going to do the way I'd like to have it, but you can use these videos to get a better idea of what's happening, help you design permanent storage areas at the stands, as well as which areas need to be kept clear for maneuvering. And when we look at maneuvering, I want to go forward here, go back to our schedule, which we've taken from the ACAP, and just showing, this is, again, just to demonstrate to you what options you do have in Aviplan. Here, I've just done a screenshot of all of those aircraft, of course, no longer sequenced, only that I've changed the entering paths are shown in green here, the exiting paths in orange. By doing these movement maps, you can also then help identify locations for planning permanent storage or locations that need to be kept clear for movement at certain times in the process. To produce that video, though, I'll give you a short insight and some tips on working with ground service equipment inside Aviplan. And we'll just do a simple path, the same as what you would with an aircraft. I'll select here a short conveyor belt. It's the same conveyor belt which is I've used here, and you'll see that my service arrangement which I created to do this exercise, I've also color-coded the different equipment. There's also a tip: you can do fantastic things with your ground service equipment schematics in Aviplan. So that you could do this with a color coding, and you could have in your Gantt chart, for example, also color coding shown to show that which aircraft or which vehicle type is there, at what time it's arriving and leaving. You can make things a little bit easier for people who are less technically averse in this type of thing. So I'll start with this one here, and I'll place the vehicle. Whoop, sorry about the zooming problem here. I was going to place it down here near this floodlight post, because maybe it's an electrical unit needs to be charged. I'll come up through the middle of this area, assuming that left and right I've got maybe some permanent storage areas. And you'll see that when I want to move the air, it's turning quite a large arc here at the moment. Always make sure you don't need to stick to the default speeds that we offer there. These things are flexible inside Aviplan. Okay, I'm just having delay problems on my screen for some reason here now today with the web connection. So okay, I'm going to move over here a little bit quicker. I'll move it over here and say, okay, this is my pre-positioning position. This is the belt loader is one of the very first equipment that comes to the stand. So from there, I might even go down a notch with speed, and then I'll zoom in and move over and park around about on the same location here. There's always going to be slight discrepancies here. This is not a millimeter act in the planning. So this has brought me into the position, and you'll see that I can also animate that if you want to see paths, and not also animate just those two segments to show the vehicle move in and come into its docking area. Then it will be serviced. I could do continue, and when you do this type of work, always just follow the sequence, make one thing after the other, and build it as you go into a presentation. Makes life much easier if you do the whole thing in sequence as you go through it. For example, I've done this one entering. So save that one and name it to enter, and then I will directly start a second session, start it. I want to start it on exactly the same location as the previous. So I target that one there, and I move reverse away from the aircraft. Move straight back away from the aircraft. I will change direction of travel. And again, you see our default value moving forward is 10 kilometers per hour. So you might want to move away a little bit with a tighter turn. So I would definitely slow my speed down, and also take a look at other turn options which we have for vehicles. For example, here, direct turn on the spot. It's not unlikely that this, to move away from this position, to keep away if that caterer, for example, might still be there at the time when I leave the scene here. I want to try to turn. Make sure you remember that we have these options to turn on the spot. And if you have a look at I can do a comparison of what would have been if I didn't turn on the spot here. I'm simply going into my editing tool in Aviplan. Take a look at this, change this back to the direct turn without turning on the spot, and you'll see that I have a much different curve to the original there. I can also continue to edit further or not edit. In this case, I won't. I'll move this vehicle down, speed up a little bit now, as long as the computer's going to work along with me. Move down this way, move back away from the scene. I'm not going to go into too much detail here today with that one. So, and sequence to show this in a sequence. This is the first vehicle which has arrived at the stand. My tip is that start building a presentation and just go through step by step. Create one path, add it to your presentation, and then add the next one after the other. We go to the 2D presentation module, and I go to my path sessions, which are available. And I just see that I added this one here, and I forgot to rename my other one. Probably I can put them into separate rows if I like, but this type of thing, it's much easier when you've done something like this. Put them into the same time track. Set a pause between here, which will be again relative to the time in the Gantt chart in the ACAP, and I can preview that now. The preview should run. So what we just did there now, I'm getting a flickering on the screen right now, so I should have zoomed in a bit better. Hopefully you can still see what's going on because it's not allowing me to zoom right now on the screen. Okay, it stayed in there for a while. It's moving back out. So sorry about that flickering. I think it's now it's zooming on me. Okay, let's just go back and I'll see if I can't bring that up to the screen, so it probably won't get any flickering. I'll just replay that one very for you here. That's my camera. I need to reset the camera. Sorry, I'll cancel that one. I won't. I think you've understood what's happening there. But my tip is when you're doing this sort of work, build it up, build your path, add it to the presentation, build the next path, add it to the presentation, and you get a much better feeling for the sequencing of what's happening. And it also saves you a lot of time in creating the presentation, which you see can have a lot of value later for analyzing the stand and the scenario, and also identifying problems, whether it's in the geometry or problems that might exist in the sequencing of the currently planned sequencing at the stand. So I think that's enough said for now. I hope I've been able to give you a bit of insight into planning for ground service equipment at the stand, and give you a bit of confidence to do this type of thing with Aviplan as well. I'm open for questions if any of you have any questions on what I've mentioned so far. The message I was really wanting to put out there is that you can do a lot with Aviplan. You can do a lot with the movement of these vehicles. You can integrate it all into your planning, but if you don't get the right information up front, right through the process, you need to find out who's on the ground, what equipment are they using, what processes are they following, what goals are they trying to achieve, and then you'll be able to help them get there. But it's very important to keep everybody involved here. Even if it's if you're planning something completely new, it's not even in operation yet, there will be people already involved who are going to operate. And so these are the people you need to get the information from. And I think it's the single most important thing in planning for ground surface equipment is to have the information from the people on the ground who are actually going to be operating it. Okay, there's a question. Pablo asks, why is it mandatory to fill the water last? Well, not actually mandatory, but it is suggested. The IATA, their ground operations manual, they do suggest that you should try and do that. You will notice, and I'll just flick back through these slides here a bit, whoops, went too far. You'll see that actually Boeing, in what they've offered here, the potable service, water, is being serviced right in an early stage. Although in the operation manuals from IATA, which is actually a much newer publication than this one here from Boeing, does say that to the end. And it's all a part of the lower risk of contamination, I think. So there's more a chance that nobody else is around when the potable water is being refilled. Are there any plans to include conflict analysis in the maneuver module for Aviplan? Patricia, we have added that already in 3.0 for aircraft. So what we already do with our new group path tool, you can define in the drawing layers in the CAD drawing which are to be considered for conflict, for example, pavement edge, or your movement area delineation lines, and stuff like this. You can also already now measure or detect conflict to these, and so the technology, we already have it in Aviplan. Of course, that's not going to be a problem for us. We don't have it with regards to ground service equipment. We haven't added that, but sure, why not? We can take a look at that too. But for aircraft, main gear to pavement edges, we're already doing that, or with outer engine edge to your shoulder layers. Yeah, there's a mention here. Question I have is the ACAP for a Boeing aircraft is somewhat different than an Airbus. And do we need to consider them both when considering paths? Yes, because as I showed before, they do have different abilities, because some of the Airbus aircraft you can, for example, move the fueling to the left and not have to have it on the right. There could also be, depending on the operator, they might be loading containers as opposed to loose baggage, which you'd find on the Boeing. There's not a huge amount of difference, but there is enough that can make the actual stand design different. Exactly. So you need to check these different scenarios, and also would be good to compare the turnaround schedules, which you do find in the ACAPs. There's a question here from Dasari. Can we get automatic fuel pit location while designing a stand? You don't get an automatic fuel pit location, but what you can do, and I'll zip back over to the Aviplan situation here, and if I move out here, I might even have something in here that we can take a quick look at. In this particular location here, you'll see at the stand this might be a bit slow to react here, sorry. Here I've got one of the scenarios which you saw in the other screen one of the screenshots. What I can do in a scenario like this is, if I can get, okay, here the stand is open there now. If, for example, in this scenario here, I would set this over to a fully automatic positioning system, and this Aviplan will rearrange. I'm not too sure. I haven't switched the bridges on. What will happen is, if I add services, for example, a fuel pit, I can add to this session, and you can see that I see my operating area as a radius, and I can, by moving this, I can place it in a location where I encompass all of the fuel ports, and can avoid the engine area and place this. If I place it, and because I'm set automatic, Aviplan will also ask if I want that to be considered in the planning, and because I'm set it fully automatic, it will, if it needs to, rearrange the aircraft to make sure that all fit inside that area where I have now decided myself. And this is also an iterative process. I can go ahead and say, yes, this won't, because of the layout here, make any changes right now, but yes, it won't decide the spot for you, but you can decide it based on geometry here, and Aviplan will then ask if you want it to make any other adjustments to the positioning of the aircraft based on that location. Okay, so Isolde, that's pretty much a very, very similar question. Will Aviplan one day suggest positions for ground connections? Perfectly possible. We do it the other way around at the moment. You place the fuel pit, and Aviplan arranges the aircraft accordingly. There are different scenarios. If you're working at an existing location and the fuel pits are already there, I mean, then you don't have much option. But if you're planning something new and want to create fuel pit locations, it is certainly a much, much more successful task doing that with Aviplan, as I just demonstrated on the screen, by first arranging the aircraft so that they're best suited for the passenger boarding bridge situation, and then adding a fuel pit which encompasses all of the availables, and if it doesn't, then Aviplan will readjust the aircraft for you to suit what is possible there. So there are different scenarios that you can go through with Aviplan, but on the other hand, it wouldn't be such a problem for us to be able to do it the other way around, to say, okay, Aviplan calculates and says this would be a great spot for the fuel pit. Again, something that we should think about. Thanks for your input, Isolde. Okay, so no more questions coming in. My thanks to you all. Also, if you have any other questions outside this that you think we might be able to answer for you, info@aviation, you see on the screen right now, infoaviation@transoftsolutions.com, or you can contact either myself, Bernard Goodworth, so b.goodworth@transoftsolutions.com, or Mike Frost, who you also see there on the screen at the moment. Mike is also, depending on, now because you guys are mostly in the American time zone, you're more likely to capture Mike if you're looking for quick answers than myself. Thanks for attending, everybody. Hope you have a great day, and keep your eye out for upcoming InFocus or TransOft Solutions product webinars. We're always happy also to customize something to what you guys are looking for. So if you have a topic that you want to know a little bit more about, send us information. Send us a request to infoaviation@transoftsolutions.com, and if we don't have the competence in our own ranks, we will find somebody in the scene to do a presentation for you based on the theme of your preference. Thanks, and bye for now.